Hello and welcome. My name's Xavier Royer. This video I made because the events of January 6th have some people rightfully kind of freaked out, right? That's never happened in the United States before. We've never had people break into the Capitol building. And I just kind of want to make a video to help people be more informed, right? Things aren't as scary when you're more informed. I might speak a little quickly because there's a lot I want to get through. But I want to also not take up too much time in your day. I also apologize. I know the mic's a little quiet. It's as good as I can do. If I actually had this goofy headset on that I'm recording with, it doesn't actually get that much louder. What makes me qualified to talk about any of this? I have a master's degree in international relations, and I specifically studied a lot of inter-country conflict. So we're talking about rebellions, coups, insurgencies. So I do know a little bit. I do not know the most. There are people with PhDs in this sort of stuff, people who have different life experiences who know a lot more. If you want to learn more, by all means, let me know. I will point you in the right direction. This is just meant to be kind of a quick and dirty starting point, which I do feel comfortable providing. I'm going to try not to speak outside of stuff that I don't know, right? If I don't know, I don't know. I have no problem admitting that. Our visual aid is going to be the beautiful Microsoft Paint, the savior of many. I would even consider myself techie, but also time crunched. I do want something visual there for y'all, just to, you can read it over. You don't have to just try to remember what I say once or keep rewinding or whatever it may be. So with all that being said, let's get into it. I'm going to try to keep the video short. Within 15 minutes or so, my previous attempts have taken about 20. We'll see if we can keep this down. If I'm speaking quickly, that's why. Coup. People have referred to what it means, what happened on January 6th as a coup, right? What is a coup? This should work. Awesome. Quick and forceful change of leadership that does not change the country geopolitically. Keywords are quick, and then the second part, do not change the country geopolitically. Coups do not end up being civil wars. It is a very snappy change of leadership. Someone will come in and quickly take over power from whoever the original person in power was, right? And it does not change the country geopolitically. If there were a coup in a country, let's say Luxembourg, why not? They seem ripe for a coup these days. If Luxembourg had a coup, it would still be Luxembourg. It would look like Luxembourg on the map. People would still refer to it as Luxembourg. No chunk of Luxembourg would be carved out into a new country. Luxembourg would not gain any territory. A coup is just the replacement of leadership. What happens after that, different governing style, all sorts of things, that's all fine. We're not changing who the country is, right? This is different than large-scale civil wars. If it's a coup, it's happened within about a week, and a week is stretching it. That's just saying, the results kind of been known. It's just one group was able to hold out. Typically with coups, whoever loses, let's say the coup fails or succeeds, right? Whoever's on the wrong end usually gets killed or exiled or imprisoned for life. They're definitely not spending more time in politics. So what does all this mean for us, right? What happened on January 16th for me was a coup. However, with about as many asterisks as it'll let me put on here, right? Reason being, most coups aren't thought up the day of. I don't think Donald Trump or the protesters necessarily, hopefully, otherwise people are actually going to be going to jail for a very long time, woke up in the morning planning on doing a coup. It did not change the government, so technically it failed. Most people who they have caught are awaiting charges. I've heard a lot of people are being charged for kind of small potatoes issues to be sort of held while they build a bigger case for the federal crimes that are the big problem, right? Donald Trump's still the president, though. He hasn't. He might get impeached and not be able to operate politically after that, I think that's kind of the goal of the impeachment, is to keep him from running for office again. That would be kind of in line with how coups work in other countries, being barred from something like that when you're on the losing end. The only reason I'm considering it a coup, though, is that it happened while Joe Biden was being confirmed as the next president of the United States, right? It happened during that vote confirmation process. If it happened at literally any other point, because at that point you could make the argument that they were trying to stop him from actually becoming the next president, right? They're trying to interrupt that process and change something fundamentally. I don't think they ever were going to. It takes a lot more than a few thousand people storming the Capitol, as horrific as that is, to change something in the United States, right? So technically, yes, it was a coup. It wasn't particularly well planned. The stakes weren't actually as high as you'd expect from another coup. Not to reduce the gravity of it. It's still a bad thing to have happen. But yes, a coup did take place. It did fail. Take that how you will. The other word I've seen actually described a lot was insurrection. There's an insurrection. I'm actually going to change that a little bit. We're going to call it... Oh, I guess I won't stay if I have to keep using back. I'm going to call it an insurgency. We're going to talk about insurgencies, rather. Insurgencies do insurrections, right? The difference between something like an insurgency and just the coup... Insurgency is sustained, non-state endorsed, meaning like it's not the government, right? It's an enemy to the state, is how that should be interpreted. Movement to make tangible changes to government or policy in a country, often employing violence as a tactic. I mean, that often should read as almost always. Insurgency is a group that's trying to take over power from the current government, but that's going to be, again, sustained. Is an important thing. Non-state is also important. This is what you're going to see in more of like a legit rebellion, right? In insurgencies, the outcome might be a geopolitical change. The borders might change. The name of the country might change. It also might not. It really depends on the case of the insurgency. Are we seeing an insurgency with what happened on January 6th? No, it's tough to tell, right? That's kind of a big we'll see. I think a lot will be made of in the next couple days. Again, this is January 18th. We've only got a few more days till the inauguration. There was lots of reports of things happening. I think there was one that said there was something planned in all of the 50 state capitals and DC on some of the days between today, and I could be missing breaking news right now. Today and the inauguration. An insurgency is still a bit of a stretch. It would take a lot to topple the government of the United States of America, especially considering the really limited support. I mean, we're actually seeing, Mitch McConnell, Ben Sasse both came out immediately after what happened on the 6th and denounced it, right? Like what we've seen now that we hadn't seen before is a very clear line being drawn by most, federal lawmakers that, like, this is not okay, right? And how they interpret what should happen next might be different. But I think if we were to see an insurgency, I don't know, right? This is one of those points where I'm going to say I don't know. Is it possible? Absolutely. How would that affect you and I? We'll see. I think the United States would just be such a tough country to try to pull that off in, which we'll talk about here in a moment in the next section. Now, insurgency, maybe not, but what did this strike me as? A little bit of terrorism, right? What's the difference between terrorism and insurgency? Terrorism is a lot less targeted. Politically motivated violence is all I put. Again, you can talk about what terrorism is and isn't for hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and months and months and months and years and years and years. But for what we care about here, terrorism, politically motivated violence. They're doing violent things to try to change hearts and minds, try to change opinions, right? Something along the lines is, if we don't get our way, we will do this bad thing, right? Or this bad thing will happen until we get our way. Or planting a flag that they believe in X, Y, and Z by doing this, whatever. I think that's what the most accurate way to describe what happened on the 6th. I would consider a terroristic attack, right? Because I don't think there was any realistic idea that they were going to get, the result of having Donald Trump still be president. But, they've made this statement. It might embolden people who were kind of on the fence before to do something, right? Hopefully not. Um, but it strikes me more as terrorism. Do insurgencies do terrorism? Absolutely. Absolutely. Not all of them, but they can. It's definitely a tactic that's in there, that repertoire. But terrorism is maybe the best label for the things that we've seen or have heard might happen in the next few days. Things would have to become a lot more long term and organized for them to really be an insurgency uh, situation, right? Like a legit civil war in the United States. I think we're still quite a few steps away from comfortably labeling things like that, though it is possible. So, what does all this mean for us, right? Here in the United States, we aren't used to this, right? I mean, we have a very, yeah, pretty stable democracy. But yes, this is going to happen to us. Fun fact: democracy is the least stable form of government if you look at it statistically, right? Now, most people think of democracies as the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Germany, France, big NATO countries, big EU countries. However, democracy is the toughest thing to build, right? You got to have a lot of people on the same page for democracy to work, right? You have to have people willing to lose and be okay with it. And that, when you're just starting out and you haven't, put those stakes in the ground, it's much tougher. All governments and all leadership gets more stable as time goes on. It's definitely a snowball effect. The longer you can stay in there and continue to build on those cultural norms of whatever government you might have, the harder it is to topple. And, we've had a civil war in the United States. Even then, it was kind of amicable as civil wars go. There was kind of, when it ended, we welcomed the South kind of back into the fold. People have conflicting ideas on how Reconstruction worked out. But when you see new democracies, they fall apart pretty quickly most of the time. The United States is a democracy. It's very stable. But yes, we can have that division, right? Once you have people who decide that they're not willing to lose elections, right? That they're not willing to accept results. Maybe for whatever reason they believe that the result is invalid. If you have leadership calling into question results, you start to see the things that hold the democracy up. Once you start seeing those called into questions, things get a little bit shaky and things like this happen. However, we are equipped to handle this as a nation. It's going to take a lot more than what happened on January 6th, even if the next couple days are really bad days for America. Even if they're really bad days for America, we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. We just have so much already baked in, right? And I think we'll be better for it. I think we needed a reminder not to take, this is again 100% me now. We needed a reminder not to take democracy for granted. Wish it didn't take that for us to think in those terms, right? Like, democracy doesn't just happen. It takes a lot. It takes people willing to say, you've beaten me in the election. Good game. I'll see you in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or whatever that cycle may be, right? People, when they don't get a law passed, being willing to still recognize that as the law of the land, It takes a lot to keep democracy going. I think we've been reminded of this. I have faith that going forward we will be able to figure it out, get back to our roots a little bit as a country. But, things can happen, right? When you're not careful, even if you are the United States. But I think we'll be fine. And I think that's how I'm going to leave it. If you have questions, please ask me. Don't put them in the comments. If you, I would rather just be able to engage with you and point you in a good direction than have it be public, um, in such a way that stuff gets heated and you just get in some unnecessary internet fight at the end of the day. That's really what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to save you time and emotional anxiety from, dealing with other people. Just let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I'd be happy to give opinions. I'm trying not to give opinions on here. This is just what these things are, right? Hopefully this answered some of your questions. I'm not going to speak really to the legality of the folks who participated in what happened on the 6th. A lot remains to be seen. I'm not a legal expert. Like, totally, it's at that point I become a hobbyist and not a, I haven't researched that. It's just something I've come into contact listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But yeah, take care of yourselves. When you are on a plane, they say put the mask on before you help your kid for a reason. You can't help anyone else unless if you're passed out. So take care of yourself, take care of others, educate yourself further if it's not too much of an, emotional grind. I know, learning about this stuff, especially when it's in your own country, it can be very anxiety inducing. That's nothing to be ashamed of. But yeah, I'm open for any questions, and just have a great rest of your week. Have a great 2021. Thank you all.